Welcome to another edition of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Week 1 is now officially set. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets come to town. What does Jared Goff's extension mean for Brock Purdy? And this Jets Niners game has no shortage of storylines. Stick around, we'll talk about it all. Woo, snazzy new intro. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on Gold Standard Podcast Network. Steph, how are you? Are we clear of rat beef?
I was hoping you would start with some reference to the rap beef because I wanted to ask you who do you think won? Well, I'm
The
gonna.
guy, the guy whose record I cannot escape. I was literally out last night, and Not Like Us came on, and this is on the East Coast, and everyone starts to do
On
their
the East
version of the
Coast too.
countdowns.
Hey,
Yes, hey, I think we know who won. But yeah, I finally we're clear of rat beef. We don't have to talk about that anymore. But Wednesday is a holiday, and the NFL is incredible at making everything literally an event. Everything, the schedule, invite. But before we get into all this stuff about who the week 1 opponent is, I want to ask you a question. Do you care if someone has knowledge of the schedule and leaks it early, or are you one of these people that is like, please don't leak it. I want to see on Wednesday
I do not care at all, and it's
at
just
all.
because I mean you said it, Jay. Like the NFL does a good job of building the anticipation for these anticlimactic events. Like let's be
Right.
honest, the schedule release is not that big of a deal, but
Mhm.
it's a milestone of we're one step closer to the start of the season, right? So for
Yeah.
that, we're excited. We're excited to finally see when some of these games are going to be played, the primetime games, all that stuff. But I don't care. Like for me, I want the dates as soon as possible. So
Right.
if anyone out there has some of the games, knows when they're going to happen, let me know because I want to know that ASAP.
Right, and the reason that I wanna know the dates because we already know the opponents, and the opponents were given to us last season, is because I wanna plan my trips. I wanna go to Miami. I wanna go I wanna figure out when I'm gonna make my way to Levi's, and, I've already looked at the opponents and said, "Well, I've already been to Levi's. I wanna go to other stadiums. I wanna go to Miami. I wanna see when they do Buffalo, Green Bay, because if it's during a time when it's not negative 300 degrees, I'd like to go visit there too or whatever, but, Miami for sure is the one that I've got my eye on, but regardless, little by little, the schedule is leaking out. Obviously, we knew Green Bay and the Philadelphia Eagles week 1 in Brazil. That's a Friday game. We are eating good as 49ers fans, and I want to tell you why. Thursday night football, the Chiefs against the Ravens. Friday football, the Packers and the Eagles. We get Saturday off. Sunday is our day because the San Francisco 49ers play on Monday night football against the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. So we get 3 whole days of football without having to have heart attacks about the team, worry about our team. We get to, Sunday, I'm going to do something that I normally don't get to do on Sundays because I'm so locked in and trying to take my notes and get ready for it to analyze everything. I'm going to go watch football with people. I'm gonna go watch football with people,
You're gonna be
like,
social.
and right, and just check my fantasy scores and have a blast. But it is set in stone. Aaron Rodgers on his way back to back years on Monday Night Football. Last year, obviously, only played 4 snaps before he tore his Achilles. But obviously, the Aaron Rodgers thing is gonna bring up Steph. Did you know that he wanted to be a San Francisco 49er and the 49ers passed on him?
Yeah, I was like that's the one thing I can wait on to hear the same narrative over and over again for like the past however many years he's been in the league, however many times he's played the 49ers, like always they will remind us of that. That can wait.
Yeah.
No rush
I
on
didn't
that.
know that. I just found that out today. I had no idea that Aaron Rodgers went to Cal, wanted to be a 49er, and the 49ers selected Alex Smith. I had no idea at all. I mean, that was shocking. That just added on the see, I thought this was the DJ Reed, Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw revenge game, but that just adds a whole new layer, Steph. I can't believe that the 49ers would do something like that, right?
It is crazy. But no, I do like that the 49ers get to start the season at home, prime time. They don't get a lot of home games to start the season, but I'm excited for this. You don't have to worry about the heat because it's going to be a night game. I like what you said because yes, because it's a Monday night game, we are going to have to wait the longest to see our teams, both 49er fans and Jets fans. But, you got a nice spin to it. We get to enjoy Sunday without the worry of having to watch our team, without the stress of it, the anxiousness. So we could just enjoy watching everyone else. I feel better about that. And one thing I don't love is that the team is going to have to play on a short week for week 2, but it is week 2. So at some point every team is going to have to get a short week that they're going to have to play, right? I feel like you would want it to be in week 2 if you can pick when that happens, right? The wear and tear of the season hasn't really quite hit you yet. But yeah, I love the starting the season with energy, with bright lights. And this is going to be a Jets team that's going to be full squad. We're going to get a glimpse of their full potential with Aaron Rodgers and just all the additions that they've made this season. So for them, it's time for them to put pen to paper, so to speak, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like. I've just been curious. I've been rooting for Robert Saleh. Of course, won't be for that game. But I feel like the other part of it is Kyle Shanahan, I feel, is like he's trying to zig his offense while defenses are zagging. So I feel like this will be a good test to see like what new chess move he has for the rest of the league, and what better way to show that than against a former colleague who knows you and your tendencies very well. So for that, I'm excited. And then you look on the other side of the ball, 49ers third defensive coordinator since Saleh. Um, 49ers wanted Jeff Ulbrich this offseason. Jets weren't having it. They hired Nick Sorensen, and we'll see what Nick Sorensen has in his bag for that game. And you just mentioned, too, like there's a lot of former 49ers players, and now with the Jets, so revenge game, right? We're going to see all that. So I like it. I like exciting week 1 games. The against Pittsburgh doesn't really do anything for me. You know what I mean? Against, I don't even remember some of the other ones, but this is a memorable one. I feel like it will be.
Let's see if we can remember. Let's do 2019 Tampa Bay, 2020 Arizona, 2021.
You have good
Oh
memory.
dear. No, 2021. Come on. Come on. This is bad
Come
podcasting,
on.
but it's gotta come to me. 2022 was Detroit. 2021. Wait, 2021 was Detroit. 2022
There's
was
one with the Bears
Chicago.
too.
Chicago. Yeah. And
Yep.
2023 this past year was, oh dear, Pittsburgh. All
Yeah.
right.
Pittsburgh.
See? There we go. All right.
Boring.
But
All those games
I
are
do
boring.
I do want to say this. The schedule releasing and the way that the games are staggered are very important in this way, because last season the 49ers had the least amount of rest in terms of other teams and how they came in. All the flying across the country. By the way, the 49ers still won a shit ton of games. So they're pretty good,
Leave
so
it out,
it
Rob.
can't yeah, it can't be as bad as last season, right? It can't be as bad as last season. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I found out today that Robert Saleh is a former 49er defensive coordinator. That just adds another layer. I mean, that it's just there's no shortage of things that I'm finding out. But I did want to go through what the Jets offer, because they did have the number 4 defense in football, I believe, last season. So you have Sauce, obviously, and Rob. Right after this, pull up what's going on with Sauce and Mooney Ward so we can have that up. But they added Hassan Reddick. They have Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams, Michael Carter II is their slot guy. DJ Reed, old 49er, Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley. They just added Chuck Clark. Tony Adams is their free safety. Just added Mike Williams. They have Garrett Wilson, who's fantastic. Brought in Tyron Smith to protect Aaron Rodgers' blind side from the Cowboys, and Alan Lazard, and obviously Brees Hall. So the Jets have a team. Like, the Jets are on paper very well loaded. Now, having lived on this side of the country, I know all well and full well about this is our year and this is what we'll see. Even Jets fans, when I speak to them and I tell them, hey, look, Aaron Rodgers, this guy, and they're like, calm down. They're like, calm down. Like, don't like, and even this is Jets fans, like, they're not even enthusiastic anymore at this point. But it will be a nice little test for the 49ers, especially with the way their defense is gone. I think the chess match between Saleh and Shanahan which if you guys haven't listened to the Playmakers podcast, it gives you a little bit of insight into what was going on in that building when they were both there in terms of practices turning into like full on wars in terms of like trying to get the better of each other. So don't think Robert Saleh doesn't have revenge on his mind in that way. And there's no shortage, again, of storylines in this game at all. Aaron Rodgers and the 49ers, right? DJ Reed used to be here. Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw, like all these guys, right? It's it's a lot of fun. And the Jets have adopted the 49ers way that it almost feels like, hey, this is really like looking like a moment where we can actually have some storylines to talk to. And John Chapman, thank you for the donation, buddy. Stefan Aponte, greater than Rodgers and Quinn and Williams. Man, thank you for the donation, man. Very, very generous. Shout out to John Chapman. He does a lot of great work. But this game will be at Levi's, so it won't be on the dreaded MetLife turf, thank God. So that's something that we can hang our hats on as well, too. But this is going to be a very nice test for the offense. So I alluded to it a little bit earlier, Rob. Mooney Ward and Sauce Gardner, they're going back and forth on social media last year. Let's take a look at the initial tweet. So Sauce Gardner says, I told y'all the Niners might look better on paper, but the Chiefs always find a way. And this was right after the Chiefs beat the 49ers in that regular season game. And then, oh no, this is after the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, this is after the Super Bowl. And Charvarius Ward, I'm just going to read it. Boy, your ass ain't never sniffed the playoffs. You watch it from the couch, worry about the sorry-ass Jets. Everybody got something to say about the team in the Super Bowl. Your opinion doesn't need to be heard, kid. This is cornerback on cornerback violence. And then Sauce Gardner starts today. Y'all be gassing stuff up about people that play the same position. Me and Ward not lining up against each other a single play. He was heated that day like anybody else would be and took what I said the wrong way. End of discussion. Steph, cornerbacks beating up on each other on social media. Go.
I like Sauce's response from today because, I mean, he's not wrong. They aren't going to be lining up against each other. They might have had some little Twitter finger moments in the past. Hey, that happens to all of us, right? So sometimes guys move on. Doesn't mean anything. So, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a storyline really heading into the season. Fans will make it so, as they already have, like, brought those tweets back up. But he's right. They aren't going to be playing against each other directly, so we'll see.
Yeah, and again, social media has given everyone a platform to have an opinion, right, about everything, and especially the younger players are the ones who are going to take to it. So I don't really see anything like crazy about this. Again, they're not going to line up with each other. Maybe there's a little trash talk before the game, but it's not like Sauce was talking to Debo, Sauce was talking to Ayuk. That would be something that would be a little bit more interesting, but that was kind of funny to bring up. Now, the actual matchups will be Sauce against Brandon Ayuk, hopefully fully extended Brandon Ayuk, which I think is still going to happen before training camp, and DJ Reed against Debo Samuel. Steph, that's one of the top cornerback duos in the league. So when we talk about the defensive line getting after this offensive line, man, they've got studs everywhere. PFF came out with an article today. The San Francisco 49ers have the two strongest, I believe it's tight end and linebacker rooms. That's the one that they gave them in the NFL. But right behind them in the linebacker room is the New York Jets with Williams and Mosley. And then you look outside, it's hard to find two corners that have played as well lately than those two. This is going to be an interesting matchup here. And do we see a little bit more of Ricky Pearsall in this game to try to alleviate that and get some more separation in this game?
Well, this is exactly what I was talking about like the chess move that I think Kyle has up his sleeve, has kind of planned. When you look at the moves they've made in the wide receivers that they took, and even Isaac Garendo, like just you kind of see the vision of what Kyle Shanahan wants to bring to this offense. And so I do think like this is the type of matchup where you do kind of want to bring in those new wrinkles because again, you have someone in Robert Saleh who knows your tendencies, knows your personnel, knows their weaknesses, and he has a hell of a defense that can match up toe-to-toe with what the 49ers do offensively. So this would be a game where I would love a little zigging from Kyle Shanahan, some new wrinkles here and there, some Ricky Pearsall. And so,
Jacob
yeah,
Town?
maybe Jacob Cowan as well, right? Maybe in some special teams punt return role. Hey, why not, man? And then Cowan obviously with the speed, he can blow the top off the defense. So maybe you need some of that in a game like this. So yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, me and Jay will give our thoughts ahead of week one.
Mhm.
When that comes, but hey, it's shaping up to be a really great one.
Nothing like going into and doing a week 1 preview May 14th before there's any
I
training
know
camp or anything like
we're
that.
like really deep diving, man.
Hey, it's
We miss football. Can you tell?
we're talking about actual football again. Just
Yeah.
like color us excited. I'm sorry. Also,
Yeah.
speaking of excited, the 49ers are going to joint practice with the New Orleans Saints, and I absolutely have to be there if it's going to be open to
They
the public, man. I got to
they
go.
better. They better. It's gonna be
They
in
better.
Irvine.
Oh yeah. Oh, and that's Orange County, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
See, I know Cali. See, East Coast boys
Sunshine.
learning. Hey,
Okay, there you
we
go.
going.
He listened to enough Kendrick.
See, I told you. Don't, Rob. I would say play it, but we'll get copyright struck. So don't even do it. But that is interesting with the Saints, obviously too. But back to this game. On the other side, Garrett Wilson is most likely going to be playing in the slot. Now, we heard from rookie minicamp that Renardo Green was starting in there. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be starting in the slot. I think it's
Mhm.
actually smart to begin him from the inside out because I think that he can be a boundary corner already. But getting him ingrained with being inside, obviously, rookie minicamp, there's not any pads, there's not any touching, anything like that. But it's going to be interesting to figure out what this cornerback room is going to shape out as because Garrett Wilson against any slot receiver is going to be a problem. On the outside, you're going to have Mike Williams and Alan Lazard. And Garrett Wilson is one of the finer young wide receivers in the league. And we might get a chance to actually see Rodgers and him and their rapport. That's going to be something that's going to be very interesting for the 49ers and how they attack him in the slot because he is very good.
That's what I'm saying. This is going to be a big test right off the bat for Nick Sorensen. Let's hope Brandon Staley, who, it seems like he's going to be in charge of the game planning, which we all kind of figured when that hiring was announced, or I guess it hasn't officially been announced by the 49ers, but you know what I mean. Um, yeah, I think that'll definitely be a test for the defense, a test for any newcomers, because as we know, outside of Mooney Ward and Lenore, which are the mainstays in that secondary, you have some new faces, right? Maybe you start the season with Mustafa at safety. I mean, I don't know if Hufunga is going to be back, when he's going to be back. I just throwing that out there. And then they brought in a bunch of new corners, including Renardo Green, as you mentioned, Isaac Yadam. Like, so who is going to be the starting nickel this season? We'll find out. OTAs, training camp up next. We're excited to see how that battle kind of unfolds throughout the offseason. But whoever is the starting nickel is going to have a huge test right off the bat, right? So I don't envy whoever's going to be there. But I will say, like, from everything we've seen and heard of Renardo Green, I think he would love that challenge.
Yeah.
Like he would rise up to that occasion, I think. And so I wouldn't be mad at all if it was the rookie Renardo Green going up against Wilson in that game.
Obviously, we're speculating right now because it could be
Yeah.
Yinium, it could be Rock Yassin outside, it could be Lenore
Yeah.
inside, it could be Lenore outside. There's plenty of combinations again with the way that the 49ers can do this. And I think that's what's exciting because the secondary isn't exactly like set in stone. And there are a few options, and there are guys that have upside and have potential and could, be better than other guys. But we have to wait for all of that to play out. Yeah, this Jets game is a perfect game, in my opinion, for week 1 for the 49ers to kind of show, hey, they're not like us, and or we don't have a Super Bowl hangover, right? So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this one plays out. So again, let's kind of
Well,
pivot
just one
because
more thing though,
one more thing.
because you were like uh saying that we'll have to wait and see, like, who's going to be out there for the 49ers on this defense. I would not be surprised if the 49ers drag that out for as long as they can, like literally
Yeah.
week of the game, Kyle's getting questions. Do you know who's going to be your starting nickel, or you know who's going to be your safety?
And the more you
He's going to
ask him,
drag
the
that
less he's
out as
gonna
long
tell
as he
you.
can.
Like the
Yeah.
more you ask him, the more he's gonna get pissed and not tell you.
Good, good. Like if
Right.
any competitive advantage you can have, for me, for some of us, it's frustrating to like not know because we're like dying for that kind of information.
Mhm.
But for competitive advantage sake, and again, you're going up against someone who knows you very well. Why not? Like I love that. Drag it out.
I mean, Eric Branch is gonna ask a question to Kyle, and he's gonna be like, "I know what you're saying, but I'm not gonna tell you." Like and he just like I can hear it right now, like with the way he is. And you're right. Stylistically, what the Jets want to do offensively, they've literally San Francisco East. It's literally like a whole coaching
Yeah.
staff, all these players, everybody, right? San Francisco East is going to be very interesting, almost mirror images. Now, Steph, the 49ers have solved their offensive line problems. They have signed Chris Hubbard, swing tackle, who last played for the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, I'm being facetious, but I will go through some of his numbers. Last season, according to PFF, 67.8 pass blocking rating, allowed 4 sacks, 4 hits, 10 hurries, 18 pressures in 292 pass blocking snaps. Over his career, he's played 4 years with Pittsburgh, 5 years with Cleveland, and 1 year with Tennessee. 21 sacks allowed, 20 hits, 110 hurries, and certain years, 42.9 pass blocking on 22 pass blocking snaps for Cleveland. That's nothing, right? That you really can't go off it. But in 2020, 164 pass blocking snaps, 78.3, 73.6 in 2018 on 694 pass blocking snaps for Cleveland. This sounds like competition for right tackle. That's all he played last season, 473 snaps at right tackle for the Tennessee Titans, ended with a 67.8 pass blocking rate. Steph, it's not a guarantee that he makes this roster, and this isn't a fix, but it's depth, and it's somebody who can be a veteran presence and possibly can play all around because he does have experience at right guard, center, left tackle. Um, I just look at this as depth and more competition at camp.
Yeah, I mean, dude's been in the league since 2014, so he has a ton of experience. And you mentioned all the positions that he has experience in. I mean, I think clearly the 49ers maybe want to bring in some swing tackle depth, if anything. I figured that would be Brandon Parker. Uh, but I mean, also pretty clear that Pooney wouldn't play that role. I think they want him strictly at guard. They did mention like he could play tackle in a pinch, but that's probably not necessarily the situation you want to be in. Only break glass in case of emergency kind of thing for Pooney playing tackle. If you ask Titans fans, I mean, they will tell you that Hubbard was a nice surprise for them last year. And you mentioned some of the stats, in those 292 pass blocking stats. Also, no penalties, so that's nice to see. And for people who are wondering like why he was available this late in free agency, I know his season last year ended with an injury, so maybe just teams wanting to check in on his medicals and all that. I don't really know, but um, if that's your reasoning for saying he's not going to make the team or something like that, I don't know. I mean, crazier things have happened. I remember Deshaun Gibson literally having a tryout during joint practices with the Vikings 2 years ago, and that was ahead of the preseason. Right? So that was after training camp. So it isn't outside of the realm of possibility. I'm not counting him out to not make the team or anything like that. Hubbard's going to have OTAs. He's going to have camp to get acclimated, and vice versa. 49ers get acclimated to him, see what he has. So I'm going to wait and see what he looks like before making any like sweeping judgments. I think the 49ers will as well. And so for now, depth and options is always a good thing. So I'm definitely not mad at the signing.
Yeah, again, more options is not a problem, right? And it leaves something to kind of watch in terms of can he play this Brunskill role that they still always want to have around. And I think again,
Yeah.
we've kind of found out how valuable Brunskill is in terms of just being plug and play almost anywhere. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But again, no reason to jump to, oh, he's a lock for the 53. Oh, this doesn't mean anything. More
Yeah.
depth, more competition. Definitely a veteran. And you know how Kyle likes his veterans, especially across the offensive line. So it's fine. Again, offensive line problems are solved, everybody. They finally did it. They got themselves a swing tackle. And obviously, I'm being facetious again. Okay. Jared Goff got paid. Hide the money, y'all. There's poor people around with your broke ass. How much money? $210 million, $170 million guaranteed. Good Lord. Now, I want to start this by saying this. Jared Goff is a good quarterback. Jared Goff's a good quarterback. That's an overpay. But if you're the Lions, what are you supposed to do? Right? You have Malik Hooker in the background, right? Nate Sudfeld, I guess, was there. Like, I don't even know who the backup is. My only issue with this is this. Ben Johnson was a hot name on the market for coaches, right? As the offensive coordinator for Detroit. And Ben Johnson has done a masterful job of marrying what Goff was good at with the Rams to the playmakers that he has, because he has a bunch of them, and allowing him to be successful. But Ben Johnson for sure is probably going to have a job next year somewhere else. So you tie yourself to Jared Goff when we realize that a lot of people wrote his obituary when he was traded for Matthew Stafford going to the Lions. He's actually turned out to be a fine quarterback. But what's going to happen when another system is brought in here and it may not play to the strengths of Jared Goff the way that Ben Johnson's been able to marry it? I'm interested in that. But regardless of that, what does this mean for Brock Purdy, Steph?
I mean, it means only good things for Brock Purdy and good for him, right? I mean, this is going to be one of a few quarterback deals that we see happen in between, now and Brock Purdy's eventual extension deal, right? So the number is just going to continue to push and grow as we see more quarterbacks get deals. But I look at this as a floor for Brock Purdy's deal, if anything, just because I mean, you mentioned he's a good quarterback in Johnson's system. It seems like he finally found a home somewhere he's comfortable. And I think you can kind of compare Brock Purdy's stats and Jared Goff's stats. Goff, very efficient, in that Lions offense. Brock Purdy, extremely efficient with the 49ers. So I see this as a really good guide for the 49ers going forward. The issue, though, with that is that the floor for Brock Purdy's deal, like I said, only going to continue to grow. There's a
Mhm.
few other quarterbacks who are due for, new deals. I think Trevor Lawrence, uh, Tua, and not
Dak?
necessarily all those guys are like better than Brock Purdy, but when you look at these markets and you look at extensions, like it's always going up. It doesn't
Yeah.
even matter if one is better than the other sometimes. So even Jordan Love is going to be due for one pretty soon. Dak, yeah. So I mean, for the 49ers, the price keeps going up, but they probably expected this, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they and for a team that was so willing to make Jimmy Garoppolo the highest paid quarterback in the league when he got his extension, I don't see this changing the 49ers minds in any way of how they feel about Brock Purdy, how much they'd be willing to pay him. And as we know, like they're already preparing for what they know is going to come. Like you already see the moves that they're making um to support Brock Purdy's eventual contract, and it's going to be a backloaded deal. So I'm not too worried about it. But I could just say Brock Purdy's going to get exactly what he deserves.
And when we look at this contract, right, it's safe to say that those numbers jump out at you, but we don't know how it's structured. And the
That's the
49ers
other
have
thing.
been masters of finding a way to structure everything and stagger it in a different way, whether it be through season bonuses, roster bonuses, whatever it is, upfront money, the, backloaded money. So when you look at this number, I don't think it's safe to assume the 49ers are just going to hand him $170 million up front, which would hamper them even trying to keep other guys around or add to the team, because next season they're going to have another draft class as well, too, that they're going to have to bring in. And I think we've all kind of been under this time crunch of can the 49ers get this done when they have a quarterback who is playing at a top 10 level who is making zero amount of money on your on your cap, right? But I think the way that the 49ers work in terms of being able to stagger the money, they've been preparing for this. So it could be that this is the floor 100%, and this is the going rate for starting caliber quarterbacks that are in that top 15 range. We're going to find out what Tua's worth. My hot take is the Miami Dolphins sign Dak Prescott next season, and Tua moves on somewhere else because the Cowboys refuse to extend Dak Prescott. They're going to let him play this season. He's probably going to put up good numbers, and the Miami Dolphins are going to get sick of it, and they're going to go right to Dak and throw him all that money because then he can leave Dallas and go to Miami, have Tyreek Hill, all those guys. But the floor is what it is, and that's what it's always going to be. The next person that signs is going to be the highest paid. The next person that signs is going to be the highest paid. And this is Jed York, what he said about Brock Purdy. Whether I like it or not, that's what the market is. You have to accept the reality of the world. To me, the quarterback position is the most important position, not just in football, but in all of sports. Can't disagree there. Those guys should be paid a lot of money. So it's not like the 49ers woke up and they looked at Jared Goff's contract and they said, how much? Oh, no. No, I think they've got that prepared, and I think they're prepared to stagger the money and that contract and structure it in a way where it doesn't hamper them completely. I think that they're too smart for that, and I think that they've always done business in that way.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that I think fans and even myself sometimes forget. Like when we see these big numbers right off the bat, is like, oh God, like the 49ers are going to have to pay so much for Brendan Ayuk. They're going to have to pay this much for Brock Purdy. Price went up. All those things are true, but we have to wait and see how these deals are structured because oftentimes the initial numbers don't end up being what it actually is. So like, for example, Amon-Ra St. Brown's deal came out. We had like the initial numbers and it was like, oh my God, like
Everybody
mind
lost their
blowing.
mind.
Yeah, exactly. Mind blowing numbers. And then when the structure came out, it was like, oh, it's actually like this much. So
It's actually
like
like
we
30
gotta
million only. Yeah.
exactly. So we gotta just kind of wait, not
Hmm.
overreact to these things. You best believe the 49ers are not overreacting to any of this. And
Hmm.
they, like other teams, you know, are gonna structure things in a way that, oh, it's gonna look nice and shiny when you first see the numbers, but in actuality, it's gonna be something that's smart for the team as well. So that's always something that, I gotta remind myself of and fans gotta remember that as well.
And what's interesting is if this draft class produces guys that can be impact players for cheap, then it makes those tough decisions that you'll have to make for players that are a part of this core or do a bunch of money a lot easier, right? Like it's easier to part ways with a guy who has been here and been productive when you have someone that's cheap behind him who is playing well and being an impact player. So the draft is going to tell us a lot about who stays and who goes, right? Who ends up being an impact player, who ends up being a starter, right? Guys don't have to be all pros to be impact players. And we're going to find all that stuff out. And if you can save some money over here, over there, and I think a lot of us have the opinion that we're building to a little bit of a divorce with Debo Samuel and most likely Juwan Jennings, right? And Juwan Jennings is going to be owed some money. Obviously, Debo Samuel's money comes off, and that's some of that's going to go to Brandon Ayuk. But the 49ers are prepared for this. And I think, again, if the draft actually produces high-end guys that can start, be impact players for cheap, then it's much easier to make those tough decisions. And it's like Mike Tannenbaum told me when I asked him the question about Brandon Ayuk. It's down to, are you a nice to have player or have to have player? And those are the decisions the 49ers are going to have to make down the line because when you start paying a quarterback, it becomes increasingly and increasingly tough. And the only team that I really see that is able to do it over and over because they keep restructuring is like they keep bringing in good guys and they keep signing guys and they keep drafting. Well, damn Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, man. But everybody else kind of struggles when it comes to paying a quarterback and having to pay everybody else and keep impact players around, right? And that's what we're kind of seeing with Josh Allen. You got to move on from Stephon Diggs. Well, we got to find Keon Coleman in the draft now, and we've got to start all over. So will it work? Will it not? You put a lot on the plate of the quarterback because you're paying them a lot and you expect a lot of them. But when you lose the surrounding pieces, it becomes a lot more on the quarterback's plate and they have to produce a little bit more. I think we have another super chat real quick. Uh Rob.
And kind of along the
Um
lines of what you were just talking about here.
mhm.
So
Yeah. So BP was in a 3-game losing streak at 900K without Debo and Trent. How can he be a Super Bowl being paid? How can he win a Super Bowl being paid 50 million when we will have less? When he will have less? Right. So thank you for the donation, by the way, Daza. That's the thing, right? It's this window. The Super Bowl window isn't closed for the 49ers, and it won't close like in 2 or 3 years. But the window to win when your quarterback is producing at a top 10 level and literally not counting against your cap is the window that there's a little bit more of a panic and get to. That's why the season feels like a little bit of a last dance season for this group. I'm not saying a bunch of people are going to go, but it does feel like we're moving towards a Debo Samuel divorce. And if this is a contract year, technically, because wherever he goes, I'm sure he's going to want more money or another contract, then he might be playing like the Renners do, which is great. And you might see Juwan Jennings leave. Who knows what happens with Trent Williams next season? You don't know what this is going to look like. And when you're paying a quarterback that much, those tough decisions have to be made. So again, I don't think the 49ers are caught off guard, but this window of winning when Brock Purdy's making nothing, it is really the window that people are more worried about than a overall Super Bowl window of maybe 1 or 2 years down the line.
Yeah, and they know it too. Like players have like openly said how they kind of know this is their window and their best shot. That doesn't mean that after Brock Purdy gets his extension that the 49ers are going to have no shot at getting to the Super Bowl. But, it is going to be a little more strategic, I think, from that point on. And that's where the emphasis on drafting needs to come back, because you need to be able to hit on those guys, and also coaching. Coaching is really important to that as well. You said the Kansas City Chiefs have done a good job of balancing, obviously paying Patrick Mahomes, drafting, bringing in guys. I would say the Rams as well. I know they did like fall off, but if you look at how they're kind of rebuilding, and I think coaching is a huge part of that. So Sean McVay doing a lot there. So yeah, I mean, for the 49ers, it's going to be more of the same. And yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but they kind of know what to expect. And I believe in this coaching. So hopefully, they'll be able to get it done and be a competing team, even with Brock Purdy on a big extension.
Yeah, and it's like what we've been saying. This draft is going to dictate the level of success that they're going to continue with because of this, right? And I didn't want to be hyperbolic by saying that this was the most important draft of the regime for Lynch and Shanahan, but it is. It is. It has to be. It has to be guys that are going to contribute for less money.
Yep.
Having all these high end guys, it's great. It's a luxury. Hopefully, the salary cap continues to increase. We don't know what that's going to look like. Maybe another high profile player can date Beyonce or something like that. Sorry, Jay-Z, and they could bring in more money so we can have a higher up salary cap. But realistically, you need these young guys, these draft picks to be impact guys, and they need to be able to be, your return on investment has to be cheap, right? Like it has to be, we don't have to pay you until down the line, and then it makes those decisions a lot easier going forward with players that are owed their money, that are due their money, that absolutely deserve it. But the 49ers actually, have to find a way to navigate that. And I think, again, Jared Goff's extension doesn't just, they didn't wake up in a cold sweat saying, oh my God, I can't believe what this. They knew that was somewhat of the number. It's the same thing with when Devonta Smith got his bag and Amon-Ra St. Brown, that they were like, oh no, Brandon Ayuk's going to want that. No, they have an idea. Like this. So again, it looks like right now, what is trending to is it's going to be what this draft class does and how they're able to get those guys to, compete for them and play well for them, because then they're going to have to make some tough decisions. And we're going to see a little bit of not a mass exodus, but we're going to see a few players that are near and dear that have been contributors for a long time. Because remember, Mooney Ward's going to want to get paid. Diamador Lenore is going to want to get paid. What do you do with Hufanga, right? Like, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made this year. Into next year. So it's going to be interesting. And Axel, SoCal, that is the actual plan. As long as it's open to fans, I would love to go to the joint practices because the Saints will actually allow you to record. 49ers, they don't. So we can go to the Saints practices and actually record, because Kyle and them, they have those guys patrolling around training camp, and they'll take your phone away if you're looking at anything. And it's just like, my God, man, can I get these tweets off? Jeez.
Sounds like
Let's
you've been a
see.
victim of that before.
Oh, hell yeah. The one lady's just staring me down the entire time. And I'm like, I'm just trying to fire these tweets off. Like, please, like, I'm not trying to do any video or anything like that. And remember the times that we were going there and they're like, uh-oh, those Seattle spies are back. Like, and I'm just like, because I had a notebook and everything and I'm writing everything down to make sure I'm just like, at least they had some fun with it. But those ushers, they have no sense of humor when it comes to that. All right, let me read this super chat from Dazza. Thank you again. Very generous. If you were a GM, what would a quarterback have to show you to pay them $50 million? Right now, I would only pay Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, and Jackson that. That is a very interesting conversation. And the only thing that I'll say is Joe Burrow has been hurt more than he's been healthy. So even that is a little bit of a risk. Josh Allen, yeah, I mean, I guess you have to, because what else is Buffalo gonna do? Herbert, look, I love Justin Herbert, but the results haven't been there. Like, I think we need to have a discussion.
I'm telling Rich on you.
Yeah, no, I don't care. We know that the guy can make the throws, right? But we need to have a discussion about Justin Herbert, right? Again, the Chargers aren't going to do better than him, but I expect more of him. And that's, I think, what I'm getting at. Is because he is so good, I expect more of you. I expect you that when your defense isn't playing well, you and that offense have to lift up. And that's exactly what quarterbacks that get paid that amount of money, when you're not allowed to, when you can't pay the defense and all that stuff, you're expected to make up the difference between the roster and whatever you're lacking. Mahomes, obviously. Lamar, yeah, man, MVP, 2-time MVP. Okay? But the Burrow, Allen, Herbert stuff is really interesting to me because Burrow's hurt a lot. He's been hurt more than he's been healthy, and he, taking those shots. Josh Allen has these glimpses where we're just like, there it is, and then we're just like, what the hell is that? And I just expect more of Justin Herbert. I just expect more of him. That's why it's not that I'm mad. It's almost like a parent. It's not that I'm mad, I'm just disappointed. I think there's a little bit more that Justin Herbert could be doing. What do you think, Steph?
Yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, this question is kind of twofold because it's like, what have they shown? But also, you bring up, is this a must-have or could we do better? And when it comes to finding like a good quarterback, like that's so tough. Like it could determine the success of your team for many years to come. And the 49ers did quite a lot with the, middling quarterback, right? In Jimmy Garoppolo, but now you have something better. So would you call that a must-have? Would you call Brock Purdy a must-have? I mean, I would. So if that's the market, I'm not setting the market. I mean, I'm just like paying the toll in order to have my must-have, right? And so if that's the price, then yeah, like I'm paying all these guys just based on that, that alone. But I don't know. I mean, you can look at it different ways, but that's the way it's looking like for Brock Purdy. Let me ask you, like, would you pay Brock Purdy 50 million? Like, do you have any reservations against that?
No, if he puts up another season like he did last year, incredibly efficient, running the offense and just giving the offense just a little bit more, and that's obviously what we've seen, the most efficient offense in football with like the second to last amount of passing attempts. If you get another season like that, I don't think you can even think about not paying him that. And you don't blame Brock Purdy. You don't blame the 49ers. You blame the market. It's the going rate. It's literally just the going rate. Like, that's it. Like, it's always going to increase. Like Jed York said, it's not only the most important position in football, the most important position in sports. And those guys deserve to get paid. The expectations change then when you make a certain amount of money. But I still think the 49ers are well adjusted and they'll be able to do it. We got to get up out of here, though, Steph. Thank you guys for checking out the new episode. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Make sure you follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. Go over to GoldStandardNiners.com for all your writing that Rob does. It's a bunch of good stuff on there as well, too. Links to the podcast, all that. And as always, let's go Niners.
Let's go. Peace.